The number in your account is the highest it will be all month, and somehow you already feel behind. You just got paid. So why does it feel like it's already gone? The money is real. The relief is real. But the strange thing your brain does in the next 72 hours is where the whole month gets decided. By the time you finish this, you'll understand why the richest day of your month often feels like the tightest. Payday lands. There's a small lift in your chest, a quiet exhale. For a moment, the pressure loosens. You open the app, you see the number, and something in you relaxes. Then the relaxing becomes spending. Not reckless spending, not a shopping spree, just small, reasonable, deserved little releases. The nicer coffee, the takeout instead of the leftovers, the thing you'd been putting off because last week you were being careful. You weren't careless. You were relieved. And relief, it turns out, has a spending pattern of its own. Here's what's actually happening. For the days leading up to payday, your brain was in a low, constant state of restriction, watching the balance, saying no to small things, holding tension you barely noticed because it had become the background hum of your week. You told yourself no so many times it stopped feeling like a choice. It just became the texture of the days. A little clench every time you opened the app. A quiet math running in the back of your mind at the checkout counter. Then the money arrives, and that tension breaks. Psychologists have a word for what restriction does to us. When you hold back from something for long enough, the eventual release doesn't just return you to normal. It overshoots. The rebound is bigger than the restraint. Think about it in terms of hunger. When you skip meals all day, you don't eat a sensible dinner. You eat like the fridge personally wronged you. Your money does the same thing. Days of financial restraint don't produce a calm, measured payday. They produce a rebound. And the rebound spends more than the restraint ever saved. The cruel part is that it doesn't feel like a rebound while it's happening. It feels like fairness. It feels like you finally get to stop holding your breath. Every small purchase feels earned, because in a way it was. You did hold back, you did wait. So the spending doesn't register as a loss of control. It registers as a reward. But that's only the first layer. There's something deeper underneath, and it has to do with how your brain measures money in the first place. You don't experience your bank balance as a number. You experience it as a feeling of abundance or scarcity. And those two feelings run on completely different settings. When the balance is high, your brain quietly recalibrates. Suddenly $40 feels small, $100 feels manageable. The same purchase that felt indulgent 3 days ago now feels totally fine, because it's being measured against a bigger number. This is the part almost nobody notices. Your sense of what's a lot of money isn't fixed. It floats, it rises and falls with your balance, and on payday, when the balance is at its peak, your internal sense of what counts as expensive is at its weakest. You're not spending more because you have more. You're spending more because everything suddenly feels cheaper by comparison. Have you ever noticed how the same $20 feels enormous the day before payday and almost invisible the day after? Same $20, same you. The only thing that changed was the number sitting next to it. And your brain, quietly, without asking permission, adjusted the entire scale it uses to judge what's worth it. That's the trap hiding in plain sight. You think you're making the same decision you always make, but the ruler you're measuring with keeps stretching and shrinking depending on the day, and your brain does this for a reason. It's not broken, it's efficient. It doesn't want to evaluate every purchase from scratch, so it uses shortcuts. The fastest shortcut it has is comparison. Instead of asking, is this a good use of money? It quietly asks, is this small relative to what I have right now? On payday, everything is small relative to that peak. So everything gets a yes. That's why the same coffee can feel like a splurge 1 week and a nothing the next. Nothing about the coffee changed. Only the balance it was standing next to. The economist Richard Thaler spent much of his career studying exactly this kind of thing. He showed that people don't treat all their money as one single pool. Instead, we mentally sort money into separate accounts based on where it came from and how it feels. Money labeled extra or fun or just got paid gets spent far more loosely than money labeled rent or savings, even though every dollar is identical. So when payday hits, a portion of that money quietly gets filed under a softer label in your mind. It stops feeling like your careful, guarded money. It starts feeling like breathing room. And breathing room is exactly the kind of money we spend without noticing. The dollar that pays your rent and the dollar you spend on a treat are the same dollar. Your bank doesn't know the difference, but your mind insists there is one. And that invisible label is doing more to your finances than any budget spreadsheet ever could. The receipts don't show a crisis. They show 100 small permissions. Now watch what happens next, because this is where the whole month tips. You spend in the relief window. The balance drops faster than you expected. And within a few days, that familiar tightness creeps back in. The restriction returns, which sets up the next payday to rebound just as hard. It's a loop. Restrict, release, restrict, release. And every cycle, a little more of your money leaks out through the gap between how much you have and how much it feels like you have. Notice that the loop never announces itself. There's no single moment where you blew it. There's no dramatic mistake to point to. That's what makes it so durable. It hides inside a dozen decisions that each looked completely reasonable on their own. Here's the counterintuitive part. The problem was never the amount you earn. You could earn more tomorrow and the loop would survive completely intact. A bigger paycheck just means a bigger relief, a bigger recalibration, and a bigger rebound. The gap scales with the income. This is why people who get raises so often feel exactly as stretched as before. The number changed, the pattern didn't. There's a name for this pull, the way spending quietly rises to swallow whatever comes in. The raise that was supposed to give you breathing room somehow disappears into a slightly nicer version of the same life. And 6 months later, you're standing in the same spot, looking at the same tight balance the day before payday, wondering where it all went. It went into the gap, the same gap it always goes into. And the gap is patient. It doesn't need you to make a huge mistake. It just needs the pattern to keep running, month after month, quietly skimming the difference between what you have and what it feels like you have. Give it enough cycles, and it can eat a raise, a bonus, an entire year of good intentions, one small, reasonable permission at a time. So what actually breaks the loop? Not willpower. Willpower is the thing that gets exhausted during the restriction phase, which is precisely why it collapses on payday. Relying on it is like asking the tired part of you to guard the door right when it's least able to. Think about the timing of it. The moment you most need self-control is the exact moment you have the least of it left. You spent it all week saying no. So when the money finally lands and the guard is asleep, of course the spending walks right in. The thing that works is removing the decision entirely. When money moves on its own, into savings, toward a bill, out of the just got paid feeling, before your brain ever gets to relabel it as breathing room, the rebound has nothing to grab onto. You're not fighting the urge. You're making sure the urge arrives to find the money already gone somewhere useful. This is why automation beats discipline every single time. Discipline asks you to win the same fight over and over. Automation lets you win it once and never fight it again. The money leaves before the feeling of abundance ever forms around it, so there's no inflated balance to recalibrate against. The goal isn't to feel less relief on payday. Relief is human. The goal is to make sure that relief isn't the thing steering the wheel. Move the money first. Let yourself feel the relief second on whatever's left. The relief still comes. It just comes on a number that's already telling you the truth. Because here's the truth the receipts have been trying to tell you. Payday doesn't make you feel rich. It makes you feel released. And released is a feeling that spends. Look at your own last payday. Look at the 72 hours after it. That small, nice thing, that reasonable little upgrade, that quiet, I've earned it. That wasn't wealth talking. That was the rebound. And the money you had at the top of the month? It was never really the highest point. It was just the moment right before the leak. You were never bad with money. You were just measuring it with a ruler that kept changing size, spending in a window that was designed to feel like a reward, and trusting a version of yourself who'd already spent all week being strong. None of that is a character flaw, it's just a pattern. And patterns, once you can see them, can be interrupted. The number in your account is the highest it will be all month, and now you know exactly why it never feels that way. If something in this video felt familiar, that specific loosening the moment the money lands, that quiet, I deserve a little something in the days right after payday, drop it in the comments. Name the first thing you reach for when payday hits. The coffee, the takeout, the small upgrade. Naming it out loud is how you start to see it coming next time, before the rebound spends it for you. And if this is the kind of thing you want more of, the money stuff nobody else slows down to explain, subscribe. There's more where this came from.